What up? Daniel Augustin here with a very interesting episode of Multi-AF. Yo, we got the NFL draft. This is so exciting. I'm getting ready for day 3 tomorrow. Nobody's asking me for my opinion, of course, but I gotta give my take on Shedeur Sanders. I was someone who I would say was probably the most critical of him and his game during the season. With that being said, I was a fan of the Colorado Buffaloes. I wanted to see them succeed. While watching the Colorado Buffaloes, though, I started to see that team's flaws, the flaws in the coaching, the flaws in what I feel like are leadership flaws. And a lot of people came for me when I had really brash comments about Shedeur's play against BYU. That started for me when I watched them play against North Dakota State. So this is off the cuff. I don't have notes, but I want to talk about the draft and how some people are calling this a slide. So one thing I did before I go so far into how I feel about everything, I'm going to talk about how I feel like I can back up this information before I even get into my opinions. I just watched an interview from Joe Schoen, GM of the Giants, and Brian Daboll, the head coach of the Giants. And they're talking about their draft picks. And of course, a reporter gets to asking them about Shedeur Sanders. They do a really great job of avoiding the question, and I'm going to show you the clip in a second. But they also mention how there's one player that they did draft, guy's name slips me right now, and that's a great example. But there's a player that they did draft who played at the Senior Bowl game, and he balled out at the Senior Bowl. They also talk about Gray Zabel, offensive guard, North Dakota State. He went number 18 to the Seattle Seahawks. They talked about him as well and how he went to the Senior Bowl game and how he balled. Now, that's against North Dakota State. Remember, North Dakota State is a team that Shedeur Sanders and Colorado played against in the first game of the season. Are you really going to tell me that North Dakota State had better players, better draft prospects than Colorado? You can't, okay? I couldn't even remember his name or where he got drafted, and he went number 18. So he went well before Shedeur. Just a handful of picks after Travis. Ain't no other player from Colorado in the first round, second round, or third round, but Gray Zabel is in there. One of the reporters tried to ask about Shedeur, and then the coach and the GM avoided the question. The GM did a great job of kind of saying, this isn't about Shedeur, this is about another player that we drafted. And then Brian Daboll jumps in, and he says how, we had great meetings with all the guys that we saw, second and third. And then he, too, mentioned the Senior Bowl game. And he mentioned how the Senior Bowl game helped them with their evaluations. The GM jumps back in, and he talks about how that helps them know these guys more in depth. It helps them to answer all of the questions. So they're not playing a game trying to figure out what your character is or what this is or what that is. No, they're seeing you perform. They're seeing you, and they're able to ask you questions and go more in depth. They're able to check all of the boxes.
Brian, the biggest story in the league right now is that Shedeur Sanders is still available. There was a report from Todd McShay that specifically you and him had a meeting that did not go very well. Anything you want to clear up on that or deny or comment on?
Yeah, I'd say we had good meetings with all the guys that came in here on 30 visits. Quarterback meetings were productive, and we're happy with Jackson. Just to go back on Darius, though, Dan, with your, that Senior Bowl is important for us. It's the first time that, some of the coaches go down. I go down every year with Joe. It's it's something that's kind of gets the process going. We met with some quarterbacks down there. We met with a variety of people, and you're able to get some guys ahead of, say, the combine and see them do some different things. And he did a nice job there with some of the things that they asked him to do. So it's a very helpful part of the process.
Is it important for a smaller school guy, smaller program guy at the Senior Bowl to show that he can kind of measure up and kind of get into that next group of players that you're considering when the evaluation moves along?
Yeah, again, for me, it's just, I always like going down and you'd like not to go down. You'd like to be playing at that time, but if not, I think it's just for me, it's a good introductory phase. And, the players that do participate, in that bowl game is, it's very helpful for them, I think, but it's really helpful for me. But small school, maybe a guy that they haven't seen as much, it's a good start of the process.
I would say a good example is that North Dakota State kid. I mean, I think he was in the top 15, the Zabel kid. You know, I mean, that really helped him down there. I mean, he showed versatility and, went against better competition and held his own, did a good job.
It's not about me bullying Shedeur Sanders. I think he does need to be humbled. I think he needs this. If he wants to be successful in the NFL, he needs a wake-up call. My biggest issue with Shedeur has been how he has been handling this entire process. He is spitting on the NFL draft process, and that's why he's being humbled. He spit on it. He didn't do the combine. Showed up, just did a couple interviews. From what I understand, he interviewed with teams who were at the top 3. They even mentioned it in this interview because he did the East-West Shrine game, but then I was looking up highlights and I couldn't find any. And I couldn't find any because he didn't play. But Shedeur did show up to the East-West Shrine practices and to the game, and he just talked to the coaches. He talked to the top 3 coaches. Shedeur has been trying to manage this process as if he is a top draft pick, but you should never really do that because you still have to show up as if you're auditioning for a role, for a job. There are certain actors in Los Angeles or all over the world who they get offers because they're just the best. They're in the top 10%, and they don't necessarily have to audition. Sometimes they still need to come in and have a conversation with so-and-so, but they don't have to audition. But you got to humble yourself coming into this process. I've been talking about this at work. A lot of people are talking to me like, yeah, but what about Cam Ward? What about Cam Ward? He didn't do the draft either. Look, man, there's a big difference between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. First of all, Cam Ward has more experience. He's been playing in college longer with more grown men. He's been going through bigger challenges, going through Incarnate Ward, then Washington State, and then Miami. While he was playing at Miami, Miami was in the top 10 or top 25 for an extended period of time. He was an exciting player to watch. He always kept his team in the game, regardless of how bad his defense was playing. That was never really an excuse that people were using. Instead, they were always talking about Cam and how Cam might just be able to get them out of this. With Shedeur, people are constantly making excuses for him. It's happening right now. He's got the greatest PR machine ever, and he's a part of that PR machine. But while he's at Colorado, people are constantly talking about his offensive line. As far as I'm concerned, if you're the quarterback, you are responsible for the offensive line. You're responsible for the down and distance. Your offensive line, you can't expect them to stand there and block for you like this is a fucking video game. That's not how this works. So if you're back there trying to find the big play every single time, you're bound to get hit. Yes, there are some plays where as soon as he calls hike, people are coming in. That's going to happen sometimes. But that's another reason why some of these coaches are not that high on him, why I'm not that high on him. Because sometimes they want somebody who can stand in the pocket and avoid the sack. Not just stand in the pocket and make the throw, because you need your wide receiver to be in that spot before you can make that throw. So him standing in the pocket and making the throw, and people saying he's tough. He better be tough. He better be tough enough to stand there and make that throw because he chose to stand there that entire time. But if he's really deciding to play like Tom Brady, who he says he loves, well, then he's going to be back there making sure I got a hot route because I know y'all like to blitz. He's going to be doing his homework, watching tape, trying to figure out when do they blitz? How often does this team like to blitz? Who tends to be the people they like to send on blitzes? What down do they tend to like to blitz on? And now you're able to pick those things up. You're able to talk to his line. I've never seen Shedeur Sanders come up to the line and make line adjustments. I've never really seen him control the game from that perspective. Shedeur Sanders, in my opinion, has always been playing. He's been playing 7-on-7 football. And to go even deeper, I don't think he would even be this successful or this talked about if it wasn't for the fact that Travis Hunter went to Jackson State and then went to Colorado. People also at work, but Travis Hunter didn't run his 40 at the combine either. Travis is a Heisman winner. Cam Ward was a Heisman finalist. I mean, I don't know how far in depth you want to go. When it came down to Colorado, how Shedeur Sanders handled these interviews, that's a whole nother story that we don't have the information on. I cannot wait until that information comes out because it's going to start coming out bit by bit because people are going to need to talk about this. But how he handled these interviews says so much. I know that's where this is. First of all, for him to go to the East-West Shrine game, opt out of that game, but then show up to have interviews, you're managing this as if you expect to be a top 3 or however many pick. You don't get to do that. What did you accomplish? He was 12-13 all time at Colorado, 1-8 against top 25 opponents. You don't get to decide this because your dad said you're a top 5 pick, because of your stats. Your stats are based on, yes, you finding the right man on occasion. But what the fuck your stats gonna do when you still are 12-13 all time. And you weren't able to beat Kansas. You weren't able to beat Kansas State. You weren't able to beat Nebraska. You weren't able to beat BYU. These are the biggest games that Colorado had all year. And he wasn't able to even give his team, he balled out against Kansas State to a degree. But when it comes down to willing your team to victory, that's something I see Patrick Mahomes do often. How he's on the sidelines looking at the clock, looking to see how much time he's going to have. When he sees 50 seconds left, he's already warming up. He's already ready. He's already probably knows the first 3 plays that they're going to run. Whereas this guy, Shedeur, handles everything as if Dad said that it's going to be all right, because, that's just something that I got to figure out. How is he the leader? He's the leader of men. He's going to come into this locker room and be the leader of men. He seems like he's playing this entire situation like he's trying to be sneaky about how he's going to become the number 1 pick. He shows up at the BYU game with New York cleats. Crosby's podcast, talking with Crosby. How come he didn't do John Gruden's quarterback camp? Why not? Why didn't he do the Senior Bowl? Why did he opt out of the East-West Shrine game? Why did he opt out and just show up to just have meetings with people? And in these meetings, he's talking about, legendary. That's what I do. I come in, I change the program. What program? What is the program he changed? If Travis Hunter was on Ole Miss, you don't think Ole Miss might have messed around and beat Florida? You don't think Jackson Dart might have been even more successful than he already was? Jackson Dart spread the football around like crazy. Not one of his wide receivers went in the first round. You don't think Travis Hunter would not have made a difference on Ole Miss? You don't think if Travis Hunter was in Alabama, Jalen Milroe might not have been even more successful? A lot of what Travis Hunter was able to do was right in the middle of the field. He's able to run a quick drag route, crossing routes, slants, hitches, and then take that slant, that hitch, that drag, that 5 to 8 yard route, and then take it all the way for a score. You don't think these other quarterbacks would not have benefited with Travis Hunter out there? You don't think Texas might not have messed around and maybe even got to the championship game, messing around, having him on the field? Even Riley Leonard would have looked a lot better, because Travis Hunter knows how to get open. That's why he runs those creative and crafty routes. That's why everything he did just kind of looks a little extra, because he's not really just running routes on air. He's running to get open. Travis Hunter is not playing to play the game. He's playing to win. When you watch Travis Hunter and Shedeur and you watch Colorado, there's so many times where Travis Hunter got pissed off and he was out there just losing it after a couple possessions because he's frustrated. He's like, give me the damn ball. Give me the ball. I'll make a play. But instead, you standing back there, you looking, you're trying to force things. Just give me the ball. Find that spot and get me the ball. That play with Colorado against Nebraska, when Nebraska took that pick 6 back for a score. First of all, that's a hard throw to make because Shedeur was throwing it to the field side. So much more space out there. That's part of the issue with the arm strength. Second of all, how everybody was talking about patting the ball. He sure enough was patting the ball before he threw that. It was one of the most lackadaisical throws. And I'm not saying that that's who he always is and that's what he's going to do in the NFL. But I am saying that it's a challenge for these people to see how he's supposed to fit in their program when he doesn't get with the program. He's not making himself humble in any of this. He's acting like he is above the process. He talks about Tom Brady, how much he loves Tom Brady and looks up to Tom Brady. Tom Brady went to the NFL draft and he ran his slow-ass 40. People talk about him all the time and they show those clips. They show how scrawny he looked because now that's a part of his story. I will say this, I think what's happening to him now is important, it's necessary. A couple days ago, I didn't think that he would be successful in the NFL because I figured he was going to get drafted to the Raiders at 6. I figured everything that I was hearing with Ashton was a smokescreen and they were going to pick him up right there at the Raiders spot and just train him up under Geno Smith. My mind has changed. I think Shedeur is going to be, he's either going to crash out or he's going to be successful. And I know that's not a hard assessment to make, of course. But this is what can make him successful. Not him having gotten drafted at 6 or at 3. That wouldn't have worked. You notice you didn't hear anything about Shedeur and the Saints or Shedeur and the Steelers until you started to hear that maybe he's sliding. And then all of a sudden you're hearing reports about Mike Tomlin. He reminds me of my dad. It's all PR. It's been PR. It's been too much PR. Even before the draft, Deion Sanders was on these interviews with Rich Eisen and so other people on occasion talking about sometimes how, there's certain teams now and he's putting that energy out there. You don't get to decide, dog. I understand that y'all want the treatment that Eli Manning and Peyton Manning has. First of all, Eli Manning is the 3rd generation. Peyton Manning is the second generation. Archie came first. So Peyton was already an anomaly, and he played in the SEC. Played in the SEC at a time where the SEC was at the top of the game, and so did Eli. Granted, Eli was nowhere near as successful as Peyton was, but he played in the SEC and people could see it in his game. Shedeur has been hiding. He hid in Jackson State, never won that Cricket Bowl, never won the big game at the end. So it's hard to really say you just turned the program around. Goes to Colorado, first season there, 4-8. Yeah, they won that first game against TCU, but as far as I'm concerned, that's because of Dylan. That's because of the young running back who's on Kansas State. That's because of him. He had like 4 touchdowns that game. He's catching screens and catching all kinds of stuff, just scoring and doing his thing. He made Shedeur and Colorado look a lot better than they were. And they came back down to earth once they played against Oregon, and then they started to look like what they really were. A team that was built on a couple players and a team that really more so plays 7-on-7 but doesn't know how to play physical. So I have a lot I could say about this. I could rant on this for an hour, to be honest with you, because I don't like, and I've talked about this in a lot of my videos before, I don't like seeing a lot of these guys get drafted in spots that aren't good for them, because that's how a lot of their careers really end up just going awry from jump. If a lot of them go where they could really grow, I mean, they would sit on the bench for a couple years until it's time. It's a real transition now. So in that same regard, Shedeur played well at Colorado, but who did Colorado play? Every time Colorado played a really aggressive opponent, somebody that came out with a lot of, with juice, with size. I mentioned them already. Nebraska was first, then it was Kansas State, then Kansas, and then BYU. And every single time, Colorado came up short. He played average to below average at best against Nebraska. I don't care about the O-line. I don't want to hear it. If anybody got something to say to me about the O-line, bro, honestly, you are somebody who doesn't understand that you're not allowed to have excuses. You're supposed to have solutions. As a quarterback, you're the troubleshooter. You're the problem solver. Period and point blank. And your leadership says a lot about the type of protection that you do get. Your ability to understand coverage and protections. I believe that if Shedeur Sanders would have actually gone and done something like John Gruden's quarterback camp, he probably would have gotten drafted in the first couple of rounds because people would have seen him in a more meek position and they know he's coachable now. But nobody knows that he's coachable because he's just getting things to go the way they've been going. He's not dealing with things. He's got his dad coaching him since high school. You're not going to tell me that means you're dealing with things. That means you're comfortable. You're still in the cocoon. All the while, and you got people like Shady McCoy saying dumbass shit about Cam Ward. I never seen anybody who's not a 5-star or a star become a first-round draft and be successful. Bro, the world is changing, bro. I never seen somebody like you doing TV. I guess I have. It's a bunch of y'all. And some of y'all don't know what the fuck y'all are talking about. Y'all just up there getting money because y'all need money. Keep it a buck. But Cam Ward dealt with challenges. From his high school, didn't get no scholarships, but to Incarnate Ward, where all they want to do is run the ball, and he dealt with that and figured that out, was the player of the year, if I'm not mistaken. Left there, went to Washington State, and excelled there too. Balled out. Mind you, a year ago, Washington State played against Colorado. Cam Ward played well. Shedeur did not. Got knocked out the game. Keep holding on to the ball. What the fuck you think gonna happen in the NFL? Let's be honest. He ain't played against Myles Garrett yet. He ain't played against Aiden Hutchinson, TJ Watt. You think he finna run away from them dudes? Come on, man. I don't like it. And then after Cam Ward left Washington State, he goes to Miami and turns a program around that has been a great program for so long and ain't seen itself succeeding in any kind of way, shape, or form in the past decade. And he did it in a year. And people over here talking about Shedeur turned Colorado around. No, he didn't. No, he did not. 4-8 the first year, and then what was it, 9-4? Or whatever the record was, they came up short time and time again. They didn't win the big games. You want to talk about Miami losing? We can talk about Miami losing. But Miami, in my opinion, lost, I believe, because of that defense. Those DBs, that D-line, they didn't have a Warren Sapp on that D-line. They didn't have the type of D-line that was getting them off the field consistently. They didn't have DBs that were making plays consistently or being game wreckers. And so they kept putting pressure on Cam Ward. But Cam Ward's pressure was different. Cam Ward's pressure was my defense not stopping anybody. So I got to go out there and score another touchdown. And he did. Miami was constantly in shootouts. Shedeur's was different. It was nobody to throw the ball to right now. Got to protect these numbers. I'll take a 9-yard sack. How can you trust that he's the type of guy who's going to come into your program and be meek? Tom Brady's successful, and a lot of it has to do with Bill Belichick and how Bill Belichick ran that organization. Tom Brady wasn't in there as the person who was able to have a fit with his coach. He wasn't doing that shit until he earned that spot. Tom Brady came into the league and was behind Drew Bledsoe. So he had so many more things to overcome, so many more challenges to work on. He didn't just come into the NFL like legendary. He became legendary. He earned that. He became the player that we know as the greatest of all time. Shedeur Sanders is giving himself that title while trying to claim the same fame as Tom Brady because you get to work with him and speak with him. It don't work that way, big dog. You got to do the work, and you ain't did the work. You skipped the East-West Shrine game and just showed up and parlayed and try to just act like you got it like that. You chose not to do the actual bigger game, which is the Senior Bowl game. I mean, you shitted on yourself against BYU. You shitted on yourself against BYU. You took your team out of field goal range on multiple occasions. You threw multiple interceptions, and you can't blame your line for them. And even when Colorado did score in that game, it's Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter elevated that team. As far as I'm concerned, if Colorado would have done an even better job scheme-wise of getting Travis the ball in specific spots more consistently when they needed to, when they really needed a play, found a way to get the ball out of Shedeur's hands faster and made that the play, made that the focus, this team probably does beat Kansas or Kansas State or at least Nebraska, because that was still a close game. Couldn't do it. They couldn't do it because they put the entire onus on Shedeur. They made it seem like he is bigger than the team. He's more important, and he's going to be the reason why the receivers are successful. So I don't see this as a slide. I don't know nothing about Tyler Shuck. To be honest, I haven't done enough research on him. I was never studying him. I heard about him when he played against Cam Ward and then started hearing more about him later. But the fact that the Saints are really willing to go with Shuck over Shedeur says so much, and I think it's because Shedeur did not take this serious enough. He didn't interview like a humble young man. He's acting like he deserves this. Even when he said after day one, under no circumstances, we all know this shouldn't have happened. What are you talking about? In some ways, I think he is emotionally stunted because of a cloud of ego that he's been high on through the secondhand behavior of his dad. And because of that, he can't really be the humble guy that you sometimes need to be. One is a beginner many times in life. You could sit there thinking that you mastered something. The moment you think you mastered it, the moment you think you got it, you're done. You're regressing at that point. But if you find yourself in a space where you think you got it, you think you kind of mastered it, but then you kind of find a way to start to flip it on its head and remix it and do it like this. Let me paint this painting like that. You know what? I used to take pictures like this, but now I'm going to go from digital to... The moment you start to switch it up, you find that there's so much more that you can do. There's so much more opportunity. And I don't see any of that in this young man. But I do think this process right here this is the only way. This is the only way for him to think in any way different. He's going to keep a very confident air of an outside appearance for the camera. You see, he's always on the camera, but this is so much deeper than just you expecting to go top 5. You don't get to just expect. You still need to show up and do the work. Again, Gray Zabel, number 18 from North Dakota State, and Shedeur still didn't get picked. Humble yourself, man. Before I end this video, I'm just going to talk about the teams that I do think he would work on. The teams that I do think would be a great opportunity for him, and I do think it's possible. Before I give those teams, I'll just say, in Hollywood, it's one thing that I know to be true, and it's that people need to like you. And if they don't like you, then you better be blockbuster. You need to be able to walk into a room and people love your aura, people love how you make them feel, and they're going to want to put you in the movie. They're going to want you to meet the producer. They're going to want you to meet the director, meet the writer. Come to this party. That's how it works. And I think it's the same thing in the NFL. I watched John Gruden with Jackson Dart. John Gruden loves this guy. He loves him. After sitting down, after studying him, he loves him, but he was still able to sit there and tell him what he did and didn't like, what he needs to change, what he needs to keep. But just sitting there and taking his energy. John Gruden, you can see how a coach can fall in love with a player. And that is so important because you don't get to be legendary when you come here. You need to be a clean slate. You gotta be a clean slate. Because we're going to give you a new offense. We're going to give you new receivers. You're going to get a new O-line. That shit that you did in college, that shit can't fly here. Unless you just won the fucking championship in college. Unless you just took your team all the way through the playoff and you communicated with your line. You helped your line become an even better line. You're one of those guys who make your teammates better. And you just made everybody better. Oh, we need whatever the fuck you just did. Come on and bring that shit over here. It's one key thing John Gruden said to Jackson Dart. I think I heard him say it to Quinn Ewers. You got to learn how to speak the language of the O-line. You got to learn how to help them help you. You got to learn how to read the defense in a way where you can use your O-line as a weapon. I ain't never seen Shedeur do that. I ain't never seen him pull somebody to the side and talk to him about what we need to do, this, that, and the third. It's all this false sense of faith about how great he is and how legendary he already is. And bro, that shit don't fly, man. You have a whole career ahead of you. You ain't legendary yet. What the fuck you did? What the fuck you did to be legendary, little boy? You ain't did nothing. You ain't barely win at Colorado. You won at Jackson State, but you couldn't win all the way. You didn't take it all the way. Humble yourself, man. Let me just talk about the teams that I think would actually work. What makes sense. Some of these are going to be outside the box, though, for sure. I'm going to go based on the order that these teams are going to be drafting in the 4th round. Personally, I think he'll get drafted in the 4th round. Wouldn't be surprised if it's much later. Wouldn't be surprised if it's 5. But I think somewhere Tom Brady is smiling at what's happening right now. You want to be like Tom Brady? Humble yourself. Tom Brady was humbled. Man came out of Michigan, was actually playing at Michigan, and then got drafted in the 6th or 7th round, and then goes to the Patriots behind Drew Bledsoe, who's already balling, and he don't get to play really until they in the playoffs versus the Raiders, and he just happened to be ready. Humble yourself. Everything that happens for a reason. It wouldn't have worked for him in New York. It wouldn't have worked. New York is too much about the show. It's too much about when will Shedeur play. He needs to go to a team where it's clear he will not play. If he would have been behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, everybody would have been waiting for him to play because you know what you're going to get out of those two guys. Average Russell Wilson with a couple sparks here and there, and then Jameis Winston who'd be doing too damn much. At number 6 in the 4th round, the Oakland Raiders are on the clock, the 108th pick. I can see him going to the Raiders and sitting behind Geno Smith for 2 years, 3 years if he has to. Same way Aaron Rodgers had to sit. Same way Jordan Love had to sit. That's what I can see. If Shedeur comes into the league and he's just a pouty-ass little boy, and he acting pouty, how he be acting sometimes, this is not going to work for him. He'll be in and out of the league like this because these coaches don't like him enough for one of them out of nowhere to just take a chance on him. Only way it works is if Deion Sanders comes and coaches the NFL team, and then he gets Shedeur. That's it. So I see it working for him with the Oakland Raiders. The 11th pick of the 4th round, San Francisco 49ers. I can see that working. I don't know what's going on with the Brock Purdy situation. It'll probably go through. He'll probably get the contract that he's looking for. But let's just say he doesn't get the contract. I can see Shedeur coming in behind him and basically them getting ready to replace Brock Purdy and kind of using him as a threat. I also just think it would work for him in San Francisco because they already have a good, strong organization that can run the ball well. And he needs a run game to be successful in the NFL. This is not college, little homie. This ain't college. You ain't about to just come out here and play 7-on-7. These motherfuckers will hurt you, okay? So those are 2 teams, 49ers, Raiders, Indianapolis. I can see Shedeur going to Indianapolis. That makes a lot of sense to me. That's pick 15 in the 4th round. Now, with that being said, I'm not mad at the Raiders or any of these teams drafting these guys above him because they have real needs, and these other guys probably went into these interviews acting like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood, sir. Giving that kind of energy that lets them know this guy's ready to come in and be an employee. He's ready to clock the fuck in.
Well, I know you had a lot of meetings. You had a lot of FaceTime with Brian Daboll, with Joe Shane, with the entire staff. Take me through some of that whole process. What was that like sitting in there in meetings with Brian Daboll and kind of talking ball with him?
Yeah, Coach is unbelievable. I mean, everybody knows in the football world, and he's well renowned for his offensive knowledge. So I think for me, this is just such a great place to be developed by him and his track record of developing guys and having them perform at the highest level. In my mind, there's not a better place for me to be at. And I'm just so grateful to get the chance to be able to get coached by him and everyone else.
What is it about Daboll's offense that you feel like fits well with you?
I just feel like I'm a scheme versatile player, who really has the athletic traits to do it all. I can make any throw across the field, and then I can run too. So I'm really excited to be in his system, and he puts his players in the best position to win. So I can't ask for anything better than this.
This is what I'm talking about right here. Jackson Dart says he's grateful to be getting coached by him. Everybody knows this guy for his track record. I think for me, this is such a great place to be developed by him. In my mind, there's not a better place for me to be at. I'm excited to be in his system, and he puts his players in the best position to win. This sounds like the type of quarterback who understands the politics of this process, but also the type of quarterback who's going to show up ready for work every single day and is not going to make it about him in any way, shape, or form. He's not going to ever talk down on his coach. He's not going to ever show up in an interview and say something about an argument that they had. He's not going to ever go home to his famous dad, who's a coach, who's got opportunities to have his own TV show on Tubi and got cameras everywhere, and go talk about him to his dad. He's not going to ever do anything like that. He respects the hell out of this coach. He's glad he even got a chance to sit with him. He told the coach that. He's filled with gratitude. I highly doubt Shedeur Sanders ever showed this kind of gratitude towards anybody but himself. Employee. He's not going to be the kind of employee who's got his own podcast and is talking about us. Shedeur got his own podcast. His dad got his own TV show. It's weird for these professionals who are used to doing shit in a way where they got the control, and now you're going to take the control from them because you legendary. You're going to have to sit down. They need you to know that you can't be in charge of this. You can't drive this car. I don't care how much money you got. You don't get to be in charge of all this. You're going to have to learn to sit down. You're going to have to learn how to be a beginner. So, Colts, 49ers, Raiders, these are outside of the box teams. I don't hear anybody talking about these teams, but these are the teams where I think it could work for him. Then there are the Steelers again at 21. Personally, I don't think the Steelers want him that bad. But I think the Steelers are one of those teams that I have to put in this section because the Steelers haven't grabbed a quarterback yet. As far as who the quarterbacks that are remaining, I think the best quarterback for the Steelers would be Will Howard. I can see a Will Howard giving them a Ben Roethlisberger touch, a vocal leader. I see him as somebody who is going to bring a vocal presence to that team. He can sling it. He already had two receivers that are a college version of what he's going to have in Pittsburgh. So that's where I'm at with that one. Then you got the Browns. I don't see Shedeur Sanders going to Cleveland. I think Cleveland would have probably been there to pick him if his dad didn't do what his dad did when he was talking to Rich Eisen a while back and was like, there's certain teams now that this, that, and the third. I think Cleveland would have picked them. I think Cleveland took their clue from that scenario that like, okay, fine, go elsewhere. You see, Cleveland didn't fight for Travis Hunter. They're not concerned with the star name to that effect. I think Cleveland knows that they're trying to get out of a hole right now. So I think they are in that position to kind of be like, all right, fine, fuck them. So no to Cleveland. But my last team that I'll say on here that I think is the main team, the number one team I think will be the best for him, it would be for him to go 25 to the Los Angeles Rams. I think if he sits behind Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, I think he'll learn how to be an NFL quarterback. And he'll learn from the best. He'll learn from somebody else who's not that mobile, who makes it work on the fly, who's got a sense of urgency, and who's just as detailed as it gets, as skilled as it gets, without having those elite traits that everybody keeps talking about. I want to wrap this up because I already know this has been a lot longer than I anticipated it for it to be. But, I don't want to hold back what I'm saying when I have something that's heavy on me to express. I want to see the young man be successful, but he's going to have to humble himself. I don't think he's going to do much in the NFL this season except for preseason. But I think he's got a lot to do before he gets out there with his little skinny looking frame going up against people like Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. And he's going to have to figure out how to be an NFL quarterback before he gets to be an NFL starter. Cam Ward deserves to be that number one spot. And I think it's disrespectful that people keep talking about how this is a weak quarterback draft. And if Cam Ward was coming out last year, this, that, and the third, what did Drake May do that Cam Ward didn't accomplish this past season? What did Drake May do in North Carolina? North Carolina? What did he do out there in North Carolina? Did he potentially get them to the ACC title game? Or did he show signs of how talented he was? What did he do? What did he accomplish out there in North Carolina that Cam Ward didn't accomplish in Miami? How did he turn around the North Carolina program versus how Cam Ward turned around Miami? It's a ton of people just talking. I used to just get up and listen to Cowherd on the regular because I'm a big fan of Cowherd. And then hearing him talk about Shedeur Sanders is just like, what is this? You're being a yellow journalist. This is propaganda. You are just spitting propaganda. The NFL is doing a good job of humbling everybody. Mel Kiper need to be humbled. He sound crazy to me. Mel Kiper sound like he is watching the NFL right now on a VCR. The NFL doesn't even really respond to quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders right now. Just because he stands in the pocket and makes some throws, that doesn't mean he's supposed to be successful on this next level. I mean, the game has sped up. Kirk Cousins wasn't able to be successful past 6 games in Atlanta just now. What's really giving you the idea that they're ranking Shedeur above Cam Ward? What is this, man? What is this? There's a huge difference between these two guys. They're light years apart. Just because Shedeur gets to put up stats in Colorado in the Big 12 versus the stats of Cam Ward, one thing I'll say is the Heisman voters, they weren't fooled. They didn't go for this, and I appreciate that. People need to see the delineation. Sometimes all they can see is the stats. Is Cam Ward perfect? No. But who is? Mahomes throws interceptions. Josh Allen, he can't barely beat Patrick Mahomes. Lamar can't barely beat Patrick Mahomes. I don't need my quarterback to be perfect. I need him to make plays on a more consistent basis. I need him to be a leader. I need him to be a vocal leader. I need him to understand that he's about to be a vocal leader. And I'm actually happy that Cam Ward was overshadowed by all of this Shedeur foolishness, because I want him to go into the NFL and still play like he got a chip on his shoulder. It's crazy that he accomplished what he just accomplished and ain't nobody talking about him or giving him his props. Everybody just wants to talk about Shedeur because everybody wanted to loop those two guys in as if they're the guys. Are y'all crazy? Y'all crazy. Y'all are crazy. Yesterday, Joel Klatt and Rich Eisen, they had one of the first interviews. It was one of the first times where I heard Jen Lee speak a bit more honest and a bit more down to earth and humbled when talking about shit. He finally started talking about some character stuff, saying he doesn't know this, that, and the third. Nothing's been reported to him, but these people do look at this, that, and the third. And finally, because before that, all he's been doing is ranking Shedeur above Cam Ward. It's hard to watch the media sometimes. Now I see why I found myself watching a lot of other people on YouTube and a lot of people who have different opinions, because media people are sometimes paid to have their opinion. And when they're paid to have their opinion, they can be controlled. See, if I had a sponsorship, that doesn't mean I'm paid to have my opinion. That means I'm paid to sponsor that company. But that company doesn't own my take. They don't own my opinion. So I'm still in a space of just much more voracious honesty. But listen, I want to get out of here. I know this video is going to be so much longer than I wanted it to be, but that's fine. First video in a long time, and I'll just pop back in, with some heat. But look, very exciting draft, man. The Patriots are killing it. If I could say anything else, I just wanted to say that I was a little bit disappointed with what the Bears did. I wanted them to grab Tyler Warren. I wanted them to trade up and try to get a Travion Henderson back there. They need power. They need somebody who can help and protect Caleb when he's out there doing all that crazy shit. And Travion is one of the best blocking backs as well. So that upset me a bit. And then they went and got Luther Burden. Who is checking for Luther Burden right now? How many more weapons y'all need? Get a running back. Get the running back. But listen, let me not trip. There are a ton of more running backs in this draft, just not a ton who can block like Travion Henderson. But I really felt like them skipping out on Tyler Warren, that was crazy to me, because Tyler Warren is also a great blocking tight end. Caleb Williams just went through a season where he was sacked more than anybody, and then you go get Austin Loveland, who struggles with blocking? Don't make sense. That didn't make sense to me. But I do think that the Broncos are killing it. RJ Harvey, that pick floored me right there. Great fucking pick. Great pick. The Broncos are killing it right now. And I think the Broncos and the Patriots have the best draft right now as far as I'm concerned. Man, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. We're 7 hours out from the draft. I'm going to go ahead and edit this. It'll maybe take me about an hour. Let me do this as quick as possible, get this up on the computer, and then I will be going to bed for a little bit so I can wake up on time to watch the draft. We'll see if I'm right about my predictions as far as when Shedeur gets drafted. And then let's also see if I'm right about the team, because I might not be right about it being in the 4th round, but I do have an idea that it'll be one of those outside teams that you didn't expect to draft a quarterback, because I think those are the only teams where he can go, and everybody knows good and damn well we don't expect him to play. Because I think that's the only way to have him come into the NFL right now. It can't be a situation where he was drafted just as fast as Cam Ward was and anybody else. I think people need to put him in his place a bit so he understands if this legend story is going to be what it's going to be, it's going to start off with you starting from back here. Go to the back of the line. Go to the back of the line, work your way back up to the front. All right, y'all. If you got to this part of the video, I really appreciate you for doing that. That is something you didn't have to do. Why did you do that? Whatever the reason you chose to do that, I'm not here to stop you from ever doing that again. I hope you do it again. I would just also really like it if you decided to like, comment, and subscribe. That would just warm my heart. Make you the #1 draft pick in my heart. You know what I'm saying? All right, y'all.